How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Mark Roden, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we are going to be going over the top 15 best supercars of the 1990s. We did the top 15 or whatever best sedans, we did the best JDM cars, and now we're doing the supercars, partner, okay? I don't really have much else to say for this intro. Usually my intros are like a minute long, but guess what? Today it's only 25 seconds. Let's get right into it. Speed run in this video. Today, at number 15, is the Lotus Esprit V8. Now, I put this one here at the number 15 location because I didn't quite know if you would classify this as a supercar. On one hand, you could very easily argue that this is just a sports car. On the other hand, you could very easily argue that it's a supercar. I mean, it's mid-engine, right? Rear-wheel drive, right? Made by Lotus. It's expensive. It's got a V8. It's foreign to us Americans, at least. Like, in my opinion, it's a supercar, and it was competing with supercars at the time. So it's just like with the Chevy Corvettes, right? Like, Chevy Corvettes, people think aren't technically supercars, but in my opinion, they are. And so I don't know, it's all just kind of up to you. But the Lotus Esprit is freaking gorgeous, man. It's got those pop-up headlights. It didn't really win anything, you know, impressive, right? It doesn't have like an impressive track record. So that's another reason why it's here at the number 15 spot. But it just deserves it. 14th place is going to a bit of an oddball. People don't really talk about this one too much. The Jaguar XJR 15. I've never been a big... By the way, two British cars back to back. We are in unreliable territory right now, okay? But either way, people don't even talk about Jaguars in general enough. Like, people just don't mention them. The XJR 15... I'm going to be totally brutally honest with you guys. I did not even know existed until like maybe 3 years ago when it was released in Forza Horizon 4 or Forza, I don't remember which game it was, but it was in a video game and I was like, this thing's freaking sick. Looked it up. I fell in love with it. It looks a little bit wacky if I'm being honest with you. And again, just like the Lotus Esprit, it didn't really have like the most promising career or anything like that. It wasn't a heavy hitter, and that's why most people don't really care too much about it. But in my opinion, man, it doesn't matter. Anything Jaguar makes is almost always just perfection. Besides the reliability, they like to blow up. So we're in Unreliableville, because 13th place is yet another British make, Aston Martin, with the Aston Martin Vantage. I think it's called the Vantage V400. Obviously, it's going to be on screen, so you guys know exactly which one I'm talking about. But I don't know the exact name of this car. It's got some weird letters and stuff like that after it. I've never been a big Aston Martin. Aston Martin is such a wild brand to me. They either completely hit it on the nail and get a beautiful freaking car, or they get they build the most forgettable car I've ever seen in my life. Like, there's no in between. This one, in my opinion, is absolutely gorgeous. So it looks like a perfect mixture between like an actual, like, you know, supercar and just like a car that you could kind of see on the road. You know, it has that perfect mixture of it. It is just so gosh darn sexy. I have no idea about this car's racing history. I don't know if it ever won a single race. I don't know if it ever even entered into a single race, but that doesn't matter because of how beautiful it is. But like, 12th place is the RUF, whatever. I call it RUF because that's what it looks like to me, but I've heard people call it RUF. But it's the RUF CTR2. These things are pretty much just RUF, in case people don't know. It's kind of like a tuner company for Porsche, right? And think of it, if you're from America, think of it as like, I want to say SRT for like Dodge, but that's not really true because SRT is its own brand now. But you get what I'm trying to say. It's not Porsche. They take Porsches and they made them better pretty much. Nowadays, I think they make their entirely own cars, but back then that's not what they did. And so this was pretty much just a better version of the Porsche 911 at the time. How do people not talk about RUF as much as you would think they do? It blows my mind. Like, Porsche is more popular than RUF, even though RUF is on paper just better versions of Porsches. How? 11th place is going to one of Nissan's, I would say, only true supercar. I think the GTR is more of a sports car than a supercar. Again, that kind of depends on what you think of, but it's the Nissan R390. This is an actual, just flat-out supercar. It is, again, another car that entered into, like, Le Mans racing and didn't do too well, so its racing history has fallen, and since it is just a Nissan, and Nissan doesn't really have, again, a good track history, except for, like, the R92 CP or whatever that thing was called. That was obviously really good at racing, but besides that, they don't really have the best, like, Le Mans track history. They have a great one with GTR, but not with, like, their Le Mans cars. And the R390 just kind of fell off the face of the earth, and nobody really even cares about it anymore. And it kind of hurts, because, yeah, it wasn't the most successful race car, but not every car has to be stupidly successful in their racing career to be, like, a cool car, in my opinion. And this is a perfect example of that. Another perfect example of that is the Panaz Esperante GTR1. Dude, This thing brought me back. I had completely forgot this car existed until I started like doing some research for this video just to make sure I didn't miss any. And when I saw it, I was like, there's an honorable mention in this video, and that's the reason why there was an honorable mention in this video, because when I saw this car, I was like, it has to be in this list. I remember back in Gran Turismo 4, dude, this wacky race car I would use all the time. It is such a freaking unique but forgotten about supercar of the 90s. Panaz itself is a brand that just like, does it even exist anymore? Who knows? Did it even exist in the past? I don't know. Maybe it's a Mandela effect. Maybe I'm the only one that can see this car, or maybe you guys are just seeing a black screen right now and you're like, what is he talking about? Because I feel like I've never even heard the words Panaz Esperante GTR1 in my life besides when I say them. But it's freaking awesome. Look at this thing and then look up its track record and you'll be like, wow, that's a cool car. Ninth place is going to the Dodge Viper 2nd generation. I was going to put the 1st gen here, but let's be honest, the 2nd gen is just a better car in absolutely every way, including looks. I don't care, I said it. The 2nd gen Viper is absolutely gorgeous, whereas the 1st gen Viper kind of looks a little booby. You know what I'm saying? That thing looks a little wonky. But either way, the 2nd gen pretty much refined the Viper chassis and made a much better car. A lot of Viper like enthusiasts of the 1st gen didn't like the 2nd gen because of that reason, because it literally handled too good for them. They liked the raw feeling and the unpredictability of the 1st gen, and then when the 2nd gen came out and it was just an absolute freaking magnet to the road, they're like, oh, I don't like it. This thing is a beast, a V10, and you could buy these for cheap nowadays too. I'm not like 10 grand, but like you can, if you have like 50 grand, bro, you can buy a Viper. That's insane. Oh, I forgot to mention too with the last one, don't even get me started on the GTSR, because if you get me started on the GTSR, we will be here until the world collapses, which honestly could be any day now, but either way, we would be here for a while. Number 8 is the Ferrari F50. I could have included the F40 because my rules, by the way, for those who don't know, is for this video is pretty much just if it was built during the 90s, it counts as a 90s car. It doesn't matter if it was built before, like the launch year was like, let's say 88, but it was built into the 90s. It doesn't matter if the launch year was 99, but it was mainly built in the 2000s. As long as there was at least one year where it was being produced in the 90s, it counts. And so I could have included the F40 technically based off of that, but I like the F50 better, and sue me. I don't care, man. Every review I've ever heard of people that actually drive F40s say that it's not a fun car to drive, whereas the F50 is much more realistic to drive, and the F50 performs better. And in my opinion, it looks better. Oh, he said it. He said it. I think the F50 is an absolutely gorgeous car. The F40 is too, but the F50, man, goodness gracious. 7th place is the only Bugatti I've ever enjoyed in my entire life, the Bugatti EB110. I hate the Veyron and I hate the Chiron, or whatever you want to call it, the Chiron. I don't really like many Bugattis, but the EB110 just is something right now. It has to be specifically the Super Sport, because if it's not specifically the Super Sport, then it doesn't have the spoiler. And if it doesn't have the spoiler, it's nowhere near as cool. The spoiler on the EB110 makes it, and it has to be blue. I mean, that's just obvious. So if you buy an EB110 in silver, you should just give it to me, because that's a really bad idea. I'll throw it away for you. Don't worry. Trust me. I'll put it in the dump. Either way, though, the Bugatti EB110 is obviously awesome. Bugatti itself has had a really weird history with racing, and the EB110 is just a very good staple of that. Like, everybody, again, loves the Veyron, because it's kind of like everybody thinks like the Veyron is Bugatti's comeback car. I think it was EB110. 6th place, however, is another Le Mans style vehicle, but I freaking love these Le Mans 90s cars, man. The Lotus Elise GT1. Kind of like the F40, these cars obviously are pretty unenjoyable to drive on the road for obvious reasons. They're pretty much just a race car, but with a couple of real-life features in them to make them road legal. But I don't care. Do you think, for gosh diddly darn 1 millisecond, 1 sphincter hair of a second, that I care about if my Lotus Elise GT1 is daily drivable? I am taking this thing to every racetrack on planet Earth and getting the best lap times ever if I owned one of these. These things are absolutely gorgeous. The freaking Lotus Elise, just regular Elises, not the GT1s, are like dream cars of mine. You give me a GT1 version of that? This is the Hennessy Venom before the Hennessy Venom. These things are sick. 5th place. Another just absolute banger by Jaguar. The Jaguar XJ220. Now, I want to say something. I haven't really seen too many of these cars in real life. A lot of these are stupidly rare, and where I live, we don't have like super successful people living around here, so I don't see them that often, right? The XJ220, when I was delivering parts for the parts store I used to work at, I saw one when I walked into one of the shops. These things are longer than the Empire State Building laying down. There is absolutely no way that there are not human beings living inside of every Jaguar XJ220 filing like tax reports and stuff, because these things are so long. and they're also so gorgeous. Oh my goodness, they're long, tan, and handsome. Not tan because they're just silver, every single one of them silver, but they're just awesome, man. The pop-up headlights are probably one of the coolest pop-up headlights of all cars too, by the way. You stupid man, you dumb idiot, you moron, you butt sniffer, you booger picking eating loser. You thought the Lotus Elise GT1 was actually going to be the last GT1 road car on this list? Think again, doofus, because fourth place is the Porsche 911 GT1 Schlossenbursen. Don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but I tried my best. These things, dude, road legal GT1 cars need to come back. Where did they go? Why don't they exist? Like, we have some, right? You got like McLaren P1 GTR, like that's okay, cool. You got the McLaren Senna GTR, like okay, yeah, whatever. But like, where's Porsche's road legal like GT1 cars? They don't exist. Why? This thing is awesome, and they were stupidly successful in racing too. Like, come on. Third place. I have said on my channel before that I'm not the biggest fan of supercars in general, right? You guys know that. I like looking at them, you know, but I don't really dream about them because it's kind of pointless for me to dream about them. But Lamborghini always knows how to get under my toenails and start fingering me, because the Lamborghini Diablo is unbelievably cool. And same with the Murcielago too, by the way, but that thing was not built in the 90s, so I couldn't include it, unfortunately. But the Diablo is like a car that realistically should not be third place on this list. It is not better than a 911 GT1 Strassenversion. It is not better than a Elise GT1 or an XJ220 even, or an F50 even. It's not better than some of these cars, right? But in my opinion, it is. It is just so awesome. Lamborghini does everything correctly, and they use 300ZX taillights, and guess what cars I like? Z cars. So it's just the best of all worlds, man. Second place actually hurts me a little bit to put in second place because it's the McLaren F1. And why I say that is because, oh, goodness gracious, I can feel the people lining up their sniper rifle scopes through my window right now to pop me in the medulla when I say this, but I have never been the biggest fan of the McLaren F1. Pew, 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 pew. Oh, get down, get down. I'm getting shot at because everybody in the world loves these cars, and that's why I put it as second. It deserves second place, I know that, but I don't really get like the hype. I understand, you know, fastest naturally aspirated car still to this day. That's freaking awesome. But I like looking at things that are beautiful, and in my opinion, McLaren nowadays is absolutely gorgeous. The P1, the 720S, 765 LT, like they make unbelievably cool cars nowadays, but the F1 is just a little bit bland for a supercar to me. I'm sorry, but it is really obviously stupidly legendary, and that's why it gets second place. Like I said, honorable mention because of the Panaz Esperante. I probably should have put the Panaz Esperante in the honorable mention spot, but I actually gave it to the Acura NSX, and the reason why, or Honda NSX, we want to call it, and the reason why is pretty simple. I don't really think this is technically a supercar, but when I did look up like 90s supercars, there were pictures of the NSX, and it does kind of make sense. I mean, it was a stupidly fast Honda for the time. Like, these things were racing against supercars. It's another Corvette or GTR conundrum, right? It's like, they're just as fast as supercars, but since they're cheaper, people call them sports cars, when in my opinion, supercar isn't determined on the price of the car, it's determined on the performance. And if that's the case, then the NSX does deserve to be on this list. It's just kind of weird, but either way, it's here at the honorable mention. But first place, my favorite supercar of the 90s, and I honestly, like, statistically speaking, I think it deserves at least at least third is what I should say. The Mercedes CLK GTR. Oh my god. The fact that Mercedes, I have said many times on my channel before that I'm not the biggest fan of Mercedes. I'm just not, right? But the fact that this is a car that they built is unbelievable to me. It's such a unreal car. Its performance was obviously absolutely incredible. Look up CLK LM freaking track records. They're good. They won races, partner. It's not like the best. It's not like as good as Audi back then. Audi was killing it in Le Mans in the 90s, but it's not as good as them obviously back then. But it was a really good performing car. But everything else about it is just so freaking iconic. It's also as long as the Titanic, so you do have to keep that in consideration. But it's also just so freaking gorgeous. It's another one of the GT1 cars turned into road car type of deal, and it just worked. Make more of these. Mercedes, where is... I guess the AMG 1 technically is like a road legal GT1 car now by Mercedes, but that doesn't count, man. Make like an actual road legal GT1 car. Where are they? Where are they going? But ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Is top 15 90s supercars. Next video, I think, on like the whole 90s cars thing is probably going to be the top 15 European cars of the 90s or something like that. I don't know, but I want to do this more because the 90s is my favorite decade of car building. Well, I say that, but it's always like 90s, early 2000s, right? Like the 90s, early 2000s is my favorite because the early 2000s had the 350Z. And I love the 350Z, so they had some good cars in the early 2000s, and so it's always like that era. So I like just making videos of like my favorite of each section of the 90s. So I think the next one's probably going to be like European cars, because like I said, we already did JDM cars, we already did sedans, and now we're doing supercars. So the next one will probably be like European cars. I also want to do like coupes, you know, maybe even trucks of the 90s. I don't know, I'm getting into trucks lately. I'm actually looking at buying a truck because I think it would just be such a good investment for me right now. But yeah, let me know what other 90s ranking cars videos you'd like to see. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. Das Vidania, and have a nice night.